That's right, every pony, we've got another iceberg. Over the course of this channel, I've covered generations 1, 3, 4, and beyond in their own videos. It only makes sense that we get around to My Little Pony's second, lesser-known generation. Generation 2 of My Little Pony released in the late 90s, and is mostly thought of as a failure, since it never got an animated adaptation, and nobody really remembers the toys from around that time. You know, it's relatively obscure. There's still an iceberg about it though, because of course there is. MLP fans, yeah, we're just like that. Today, we're gonna go over the My Little Pony G2 iceberg, thanks to Reddit user Lady Pangea, who compiled the iceberg, as well as helping me out with a few of the entries. Now, let's get right into it. Level 1. My Little Ponytail's Confusion. This entry refers to how a while back, people would refer to the show My Little Ponytails as G2, when it was actually part of G1. You see, G1 had two shows. One was My Little Pony and Friends, which is way more iconic. You know, the Rainbow Castle, the My Little Pony theme song. Tales came out around the end of G1 in the early 90s, way after ponies stopped being popular. Because the two were pretty separate from each other, bronies thought, well, this must be the second generation, because G1 is this show and G3 is this. This must be G2. Couldn't be further from the truth. Popularity in Europe. Turns out Europeans love tiny plastic horses. Americans like them too, but in Europe it was really bad. G2 as well as G1 continued in Europe well after they were discontinued in the US. In the US, they put out new ponies only in 1997 and 1998, but in Europe, they went all the way to 2003. For those who know their stuff, that's bordering on G3. Crazy how in Europe there was a somewhat constant stream of releases, while in the US they stopped in the early 90s, spurted out a few new things in the late 90s, and then in the aughts came back with full force. Gemstone eyes. This is probably referring to how most, if not all, G2 ponies have these little gems in their eyes. If you look at a faraway picture, you can't really see it, but if you zoom in, or get one from the right angle where the light bounces off the thing, you can totally see the gemstone. Magic Motion. Magic Motion seems to be a catch-all name for a few standard gimmicks the ponies would have. Some had more articulation in their necks, others, if you pulled their tail, their head would move. Another one I saw would raise their hoof. I guess this could be pretty fun during play, but it's a standard gimmick. Sundance. Sundance is a prominent character from G1, who returned for G2, but with a different design. If it wasn't obvious already, the G1 version of the pony is white with some hearts as a cutie mark, and in G2 she has an orange coat and a balloon with a sun. McDonald's Promotion 1998. MLP has had McDonald's tie-ins from the very beginning. In '98, they partnered with Hasbro to have mini G2 brushables in Happy Meals. In the US, only 3 ponies were released: Ivy, Lightheart, and Sundance. The UK got lucky because they had 4, the ones already in the US plus Sweetberry. What's weird is that the UK Happy Meal toy for Sundance is listed as Sunsparkle on the My Little Wiki. Again in Europe, there was another Macca's tie-in during 1999. This time you could get Sundance, Sweetberry, Morning Glory, and Silver Swirl. These ponies also came with their own carrying case. Or something that looked like a carrying case. The 98 Happy Meal toys came out opposite a Transformers set, which, for those who don't know, Hasbro owns both franchises. Level 2 already, and that's the end of the first layer. Let's move on to the second. Euro exclusive ponies. This is actually a lot of them, since according to My Little Wiki, G2 went on for a considerably longer amount of time than G1. Says that a bit into year 2, aka 1998, that distribution in the US stopped. Indistinguishable male ponies. In other generations, male ponies could be easily distinguished from the females, either through body or face shape. In G2, the male characters use similar molds to the females. As an example, look at Clever Clover. He's got eyelashes like all the other ponies, but is supposed to be the sporty boy character. Friendship Gardens PC game. This refers to the My Little Pony game for CD-ROM released in 1998. The game is a pet simulator, where you get to take care of your own pony. You can teach her to jump, feed her, brush her hair, all that. You can also play games and do activities with some of the other ponies in town. The game has that 90s early CG render liminal space aesthetic, and the music is oddly calming. I recommend checking this one out if you like games like that. Promo art used on G1 DVDs. Not much to say with this one. Whenever they'd re-release G1 content in the late 90s, they'd use current G2 styled art for the characters. It is pretty surreal to see stuff like the My Little Ponytails gang in the style, or the G2 ponies alongside characters from the '86 My Little Pony movie. In terms of MLP home media releases, I wouldn't say it's the strangest thing they've ever done. In fact, a long time ago I made a whole video on MLP home media, so if you want more of a discussion on that, I'd recommend you check that out. Princess ponies. Princess ponies were released throughout the course of G2, unfortunately only hitting European markets. G1 also had a variety of princess ponies released throughout its run. In G1, the princesses had gimmicks like 3D cutie marks, but it looks like these ones are only princesses in name, as well as coming with some princessy accessories. Mail order ponies. These are ponies that could only be obtained by sending for them in the mail, either with money or proofs of purchase from other MLP products. They did this through all the early generations, and stopped with G4, since by then, you could just order everything online, and it wasn't as special to get something in the mail. There were only 5 ponies in total you could get through mail order in G2. Seabreeze came on her own, with the 4 others being part of a set. All ponies have magic powers. Okay, so before G5, where all the pony abilities were powered by magic, G2 introduced pony fans to the concept of every pony being magical. On both the back cards for the toys and the tie-in comics, all sorts of ponies are shown to have some sort of magical ability. Sweetberry, for example, can make things grow magically in her garden, and Lightheart can make her bed fly, apparently. Twin baby ponies. Another connection to G1, both generations had twin baby pony releases. This is exactly what it sounds like. 2 little ponies that came together in one pack. Both ponies in the set have the same cutie mark, so you know they're twins. Minimal appearances of unicorns. Unicorns do show up in G2, but the ratio of them to Earth ponies is really weird. From my research, I only found a few from the entire line, none of which were released in the US. Silver Swirl seems to be the main one, being portrayed as this wise princess, kind of like Celestia from G4. Rare petite ponies. From my research, initially, it seems like this is a fan-made thing. Somebody 3D printed these ponies with the colors and symbols of the G2 characters, but the shape of the G1 petite ponies. But, correction, these were rumored to be real, and were exclusive to a Hasbro licensing show in the 90s. The ones I'd found on Etsy were just reproductions. Beanie plushies. I'm guessing to capitalize on the Beanie Babies fad, Hasbro put out these Beanie MLP plushies. Just clarifying, these aren't official Beanie Babies, at least I don't think, since they don't have the distinctive big tie heart anywhere on them. Morning Glory and Clever Clover are a couple. A few sets feature both ponies together, like this one here. The site I found this picture on labels both the ponies as princesses. There might be something going on with that. Promo comics. As we all know by now, G2 never had a formal TV show or movie. The only outside media we have are these tie-in comics, presumably released in these magazines. Scans of these comics and stories can be found in assorted places throughout the internet. I was pointed to the Lavender Lagoon, this big G2 resource that has a few. There's also the blog Heck Yeah Pony Scans, which I've used as a resource in previous videos. Presumably, these comics only came out in the UK, since that's the only region that the Tumblr blog mentions when they link to the English version of the comics. French comics and magazines also exist, and presumably other European countries got their own. French commercials on YouTube. Exactly what it sounds like. Thankfully, a lot of the G2 commercials have been restored. Specifically, this compilation of French commercials I found that has really good quality footage, at least compared to the other rips out there. Level 4. Pony years last 1 month. This refers to the PC game. In it, you set the birthday of your pony, and since, like the entry says, pony years are 1 month, every month on that day, you have a little birthday celebration. Hip Holly, aka Miss Gadget. I'm guessing this refers to the back card on this pony named Hip Holly. It reads, Hip Holly is trendy. Whatever the latest fad is, she wants to be a part of it. Her cell phone and beeper let her keep up with the hottest trends. And this is the first instance, at least from what I can tell, of a pony using a cell phone. She was literally Pip before Pip. Turns out this pony came with her own phone and beeper as accessories too. Yeah, remember beepers? I don't. I'm from the 2000s. Friend of the Fairies. This refers to a pony named Moonshadow, and how in this one comic, she meets up with a group of fairies. This also confirms that fairies and possibly humans are canon in the G2 universe. Blue-haired Ivy. So in 2000, there was this pony called Blue Pearl, who had pretty much the same cutie mark as Ivy, another pony. This Blue Pearl pony had a variant that was even more like Ivy and thus dubbed Blue Ivy by collectors. It was originally thought that she was a Spanish exclusive that came in a playset, but somebody had found a version of her released just by herself. It seems that now this Ivy is just a variant on the other one, not entirely sure how that works. Princess Silver Swirl's Dragon Friend. We've already brought up Princess Silver Swirl. Her original release came with this green dragon guy. The dragon isn't given a name, but it's a popular headcanon that this is a G2 version of Spike. In G1, Spike was commonly seen as a companion to the princess ponies, and well, Silver Swirl is confirmed to be a princess, very similar to Majesty from G1, who Spike would mainly hang out with. Bam. Case solved, it's Spike. Cutie marks changing style. Now, by changing style, I thought this meant that throughout the generation they were using like a different design philosophy or something. No, this actually talks about how in certain sets, pony symbols will be different from the individual releases. Examples given are the Basket Surprise 2-pack and the Birthday Surprise pack with Lightheart and Sundance. Look for the rainbow proof on the hoof. This refers to a mark on the bottom of the pony's hooves. It's meant to show that the pony is official. G2 had very few recorded knockoffs, so I doubt that this would be a big thing, but G1 sure had a lot of ripoffs, so maybe this was just a precaution by Hasbro to make sure they had some mark of authenticity at the gate. Level 5. Japan exclusive keychains. MLP didn't really hit Japan until after G3, at least I think so, but there were some attempts to bring it over. Most famously Takara's My Little Pony adaptation from the 80s. There were also a few pieces of G2 merchandise released there in the 90s. It really is nothing special, just some plushes, I think, keychains, and a cell phone strap. Wow. Ponies in her family have this color eyes. First guess for this was how ponies who are sold together in family sets will have the same color eyes. I also presume you'd find this phrase on the back of some pony boxes. Dainty Dove's Sheltered Life. Dainty Dove is a pony whose back card and comic appearances let us know one thing and one thing about her. She really wants to get married. The back card story on her original release reads, Dainty Dove is the flighty one. Her head is always in the clouds, imagining romantic weddings. She loves to dress as a bride and magically make a sparkling ring to appear for her to wear. Her fixation on weddings could lead people to believe that she's sheltered and/or has a very traditional view of things. Talking/musical ponies. Musical ponies came out in 2002 and 2003. If you brushed their manes, they'd play a little melody. I'm not sure what mechanism they used for that, but it's a cool feature. They also came with these little plastic horns that you could blow into, like a mini saxophone or panpipe. Moonshadow is a night owl. Moonshadow is a pony who, from her backstory, is known to be mysterious. One of the comic stories has her walking alone at night when she comes across some fairies who take her on a little adventure. This entry could be referring to how she likely would be a night owl, since everything we know about her, she likes to take walks at night, and she isn't seen by people often, would lead us to believe so. Character name changes. A pretty self-explanatory one. If you go onto My Little Wiki to the G2 section, and any specific character, you'll notice that their names throughout releases aren't consistent. For example, let's talk about Moonshadow again. In 1999, some packaging referred to her as Moonshine. There also is, again like we previously mentioned, Ivy and Blue Pearl, who are listed on the same My Little Wiki page. In fact, that could relate to the next entry. Reused cutie marks. This is a pretty common thing in pretty much every generation. Certain ponies would just have the exact same cutie mark with no explanation given. A little fun fact, they even did this on the keychains, with Sweetberry's cutie mark being used for Lightheart. Globetrotter flashcards. I was actually confused about this entry at first because there's actually a pony named Globetrotter, but this isn't about her. There were actually these flashcards with ponies at real-world locations released during G2. Level 6. Are Pegasi extinct? Here's our first big theory. There don't appear to be any natural Pegasi in the G2 universe. From any of the media we've seen, the closest thing is the unicorn ponies with magic wings, but A, they'd be alicorns if they were unicorns with wings, and B, it's highly debatable if these wings are actually naturally occurring, or they just poof them up. Gabrielle Mackenzie is a voice actress who isn't really well known, but she's on the Iceberg because she voices pretty much every character in the Friendship Gardens video game, including the butterfly who shows you around everywhere. To our knowledge, she's the only voice actress to portray any G2 character, advertised next to the Sega Dreamcast. Now, I was very excited when I heard this entry because, if you don't know already, I've got a soft spot for that specific system. Now, G2 was on the market in the very late 90s, which was when the Dreamcast was coming over to America. Now, this refers to an ad from a European magazine that has G2 ponies right next to the newly released console. This is such an epic visual, unironically. The scan was published on a blog called Sun, Sparkle and Rainbows, run by a Swedish collector dedicated to G2. Rare fakies. For those who don't know, fakies is a term used to describe bootleg/knockoff MLP products. Understandably, the G2 ones are exceptionally rare. You have the Sweetberry fakie, released as part of a playset, and another in a box who's white. You've also got a few more like this Pegasus and some weird bald shiny ones. Sundance/Sunsparkle is the true heir of Ponyland. Sundance, or Sunsparkle, came in a special playset with this queen's throne. Could this mean she's a queen? Here we are, the final lair, level 7. G2 is in its own pocket dimension. I'm willing to believe this. I haven't seen any big theory videos about it, but it's been pretty much confirmed, I think, that G1, 3, 4, and 5 take place in the same continuity. But you know what doesn't fit in there? My Little Ponytails. And G2. It could be possible that G1 and G2 are so similar that they're together in the continuity, but that doesn't explain how there aren't any Pegasus ponies around. I wouldn't be opposed to thinking that G2 is outside the bounds of any other pony universe. There's clearly not enough lore to connect it to any other generations, so it's just here in this kind of limbo. Prototypes. Now, the prototypes for G2 are pretty well documented on Lavender Lagoon. First is this early prototype for Sunsparkle. Here, she's made out of plaster, hand-painted, and noticeably bigger than her final counterpart. Other prototypes from this specific page include these baby ponies. This pink one was found on eBay, and is assumed to be a version of Baby Honeyberry. A lot of the other prototypes just show up on shopping websites or at flea markets. They're not too interesting except for these two big fashion ponies, and this blank prototype with a voice box. Dutch story CDs. Now, this is another thing found on Sun, Sparkle and Rainbows. There were these storybook CDs published around that time, and are even available on YouTube to listen to. Huge thanks to the person who ripped these. Unfortunately, they're in Dutch, so I can't really speak on any of the plot, but again, it's cool that they were preserved. German audio cassettes. German audio cassettes are similar to the Dutch CDs. Unfortunately, these are so obscure that there isn't a lot of info about them, nor could I find any rips online. Unreleased playsets. The My Little Wiki refers to a few obscure, unreleased G2 playsets. The first is the Fairy Tale Tower with Petal Blossom. There would also have been holiday playsets featuring baby ponies. It's so obscure that information about it isn't readily available. And that is the My Little Pony G2 Iceberg. My big takeaway from this was how well documented all the stuff here is. I was genuinely surprised to find in-depth resources. Since, you know, G2 wasn't that popular, yada yada yada. Special shout out again to the My Little Wiki, Lavender Lagoon, Sun, Sparkle and Rainbows, and the G3 Fandom Wiki. Yeah, a fandom wiki page that's useful, can you guys believe it? But that's it for me. Before I sign off, I just want to give a special shout out to my Act 2 supporters on Patreon. Jesse Ball, I've Got Frostbite, Kaylee Lahota, Rosa, Grimamerk, Shadewalker, Knife Girl, The Blazing Pegasus, Technicolor, Jack Getchman, Paisley, Trixie Best, No Yak Best, Olive, SR Nano, Allison Madden, Johnny Punchfist, A Kawaii Dragon, Keaton Cryer, Cascadiarch, Damian, Marshmallow, and Goose Nerd. I can't think of a better outro, so until next time, goodbye.